You see, my best recordings can be my shortest. It's a great shame I'm a master of words, whose conversational powers ignores time and embraces eternity, as Paramahansa would say. And sometimes I hit it right even with a long discourse. Always right at times, of course. Not so right at others, perhaps. We won't go into that. But yes, sometimes the briefest ones have a succinctness that is just, well, it impresses me, of course. Look, I refer occasionally to the ego, don't I? Mum gave me an ego of granite. A huge ego. Mum loves me. That's what matters. That was my ego. But not such a self-centered ego, if you think of it. An ego that embraced Mum, very much so. Mum was my life. Life without Mum was inconceivable, frightening. Awful. I just didn't dare think upon it. And it was threatening occasionally, often, because she would get very upset and depressed. And Dad seemed very violent to me. He actually wasn't. It's all relative, isn't it? You know, I realized at some point in my teenage, problems are relative to us. And we're always getting this mix of good and bad, highs and lows. It's all relative. It's not absolute in some sense. But that the relative was meaningful in some way, in that you start to realize you can be detached from more of the philosopher, you see. Suddenly there's another life you have, which is as observer. Not quite of this world, but of another world that watches. That's who we are. That is your real soul. It's a part of God that's been separated off a little, that you might become an adult like God, in fellowship with others similarly, including God. That we be a wonderful company for each other, instead of leaving our Dad in loneliness. We don't want that. We know what loneliness could be like. And we wouldn't wish it on anyone. So God's solution is simple. An infinitely large, heavenly fellowship, host, as lovely as himself. All of us together. Love your Dad. Just love your Dad. Thank you, Dad. You see, I say unto you, we are not pursuing joy. That's a futility to me. It's a comparative thing. Joy is the opposite of misery. I am seeking the eternal awareness of the magnificence of God, of his goodness, of his loveliness, of his kindness, of his love. you see, my solution is in him, not in something to me quite, but in his understanding and capability, which I conceive of as beyond me. Do you see the difference? Don't get me wrong, I think it will bring great joy and happiness and so forth. But that's not my drive. My drive is to be a wonderful friend to him as he is to us. And for us all to be so. In that sense, perhaps you could say my ego is in him, is in his wisdom and kindness and choice, his love. Something beyond what I could choose, but I trust to be eternally, infinitely better. Love you, Dad. Thank you, Dad.